Hi, everyone, and welcome to Pit Stop 18. And today, Andy and I are going to be diving into a topic which is, a little different. And it's something that I've had a lot of curiosity with over the past year, let's call it. And also, very interestingly enough, have pushed very much so against it for most of my life and have only recently kind of switched my outlook on it. And so, Andy, today we're talking about psychedelics.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, and I know it's something that you have dabbled in a fair amount, and you're kind of one of the first people that I was able to have a different conversation about them with, and so I'm excited to have this with you. And we had a coffee, I think a week or two ago now, and we got into it a little bit again, and thought it might make for a good episode. So I'm excited to dive into it dive into it with you on here.
Yeah, Jared, thanks so much, man. I'm glad it subtly came up in the last episode that we recorded together. And I love when that happens, when one episode paves the path for two or three more.
Yeah,
That's when you know it's good conversation, right? So
for sure.
here we are, and I'm honored to be here like always.
My pleasure to have you here. And just before we start, I did want to preface for everybody here and just kind of, for one, saying neither, Andy or myself are, experts in this, medical experts, anything like that. And a lot of it and all of it is going to be personal opinion, talking about personal experiences, personal opinion on the matter. And, a lot of these substances are illegal as well, right? And so it is kind of, at your own risk wherever you decide to take this information, and take it as that, right? Take it with that grain of salt. Make sure you do your own research into, anything that you're looking to try. But yeah, wanted to have this conversation with you, and also, I guess, prefacing just for my on my side too of, when we talked about this, and you've been very, open, honest, like welcoming with it. And for whatever reason, even though my mind shift or set has shifted a lot on this, and we've talked about it, where, I always subscribe to very much so like drugs are bad, and like final end of story, that's it, right?
Mhm.
And that was, the story that I told myself for a very long time. And like I was saying earlier, where you were one of the first people that you talked about, the use of psychedelics and plant medicine in a different way, right? And
Yes.
able to have, like, call it a much more mature conversation about it, right? And it's not just like, oh hey, me and some buddies went and got high over the weekend, right? Like, which I always thought it was, that that's why people did it, what they were using it for. There wasn't any other, call it outcome or anything like that.
Mhm.
So we were able to have a mature conversation about it, which we'll go into. But for me, even though it has piqued my interest, in it, even conversation with yourself and some of the other things and people that I follow have talked about, some of the benefits of these substances. For whatever reason, there's something inside my brain that it, and call it might be fear, right? But there's something that's worried of, I'm really worried about breaking something, right? And I've used that terminology, and I think we've talked about that before, where um, I feel like there's a fine line and a fine balance that I walk, and I'm afraid to throw that off. And
Mhm.
so at this point, and not closing the door forever, but at this point for myself, it's not something that is on my journey that I see. However, with saying that, I think it can be super helpful for other people. And I just find it super interesting in general. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. So,
Totally. Love that, man. That's a really good preface. And I'm really curious on what your questions are going to be.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm really curious.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So let's get
And,
ready.
I guess, like, just starting off, like, just kind of opening the floor for you of, where did kind of your journey with psychedelics start? Where did they hit your radar? And yeah, what got you interested in them?
Well, what's really interesting is, the Andy that's tried psychedelics for the first time, years and years ago, is a different version of Andy today using and utilizing psychedelics.
Mhm.
My first encounter with psychedelics was with mushrooms, and it was just like in a party atmosphere, right? It was at like a music festival, I believe it was, and it was just a bunch of friends, eating some mushrooms and having a blast, having a good time, just like to raise the mood, right? And however, I would say, looking back at that time, it wasn't, it was a version of myself that wasn't couldn't find joy without anything outside of myself,
Mm.
right? I couldn't find joy inside. And it was the version of Andy that always looked somewhere for something to fill that hole,
Got
right? Where I'm at now in this season, in this chapter of my life, psychedelics doesn't fill a hole of any sorts. And my use of it now is it's quite methodical, very intentional, and it's dealt with a lot of care. There's a lot of care involved,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of reflection involved. There's a lot of what's my intention? What's my environment? There's a common two keywords that a lot of the people in the psychedelic community use. If they're using it with care, it's set and setting, right? Set being what's your intention, setting being what's your environment, and those two things are very, very crucial with psychedelic usage in a safe, responsible way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, so kind of that idea that when you first started experimenting with them, it was to, like, quote unquote have fun, right? Like that you weren't, no intention behind it, and you were just looking for maybe experiences, or to fill that hole, of either I don't want to deal with this right now, and almost like that numbing or escape, or
Yes.
trying to find like meaning in them, I guess. And I guess my question there too is, where did that start to switch?
Yeah. It started to switch. Okay, so this is like psychedelics. If we were to put that on the parking lot for a second here and just talk about that stage in my life where that shift began. And that shift began when I started just doing my own self work, self development, um, starting to listen to podcasts, started to journal, started to meditate. And I would thank my journey through entrepreneurship for that very thing. It pushed me to be the best version of myself. And when you start living your life that way, anything outside of you that comes into your life, you're going to inquire a little bit deeper on it.
Hmm.
When you start living a life of you're tapping into your higher self and living for a greater purpose, you don't just do things just because. There's more intention to things, and I think that's all it was. And with my transition and those two contrasting experiences with psychedelics, now
Hmm.
that we'll bring it back to the conversation here, is just different stages of my life and how I choose to navigate certain things. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does, and it really kind of just reinforces something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And it's kind of the analogy of, a tree is what I
Yeah.
go back to, of, you can look at specific, call them problems or struggles with a person, right? And if you try to do that one leaf at a time, one branch at a time,
Yeah.
it takes a very long time to make any progress,
Yeah.
right? However, if you go to the root of the problem, if you go to the roots and you address that, it spreads to many branches, right? Many leaves. And yeah, and so, when you're talking about that, that's what comes out for me of, as
Yeah.
you start to work on yourself, however it be, self-improvement, mental health, whatever that journey looks like, it spreads to other areas, right? You're not trying to fill that hole anymore, or trying to numb out or escape, that life. And, so the way you look at things and the way you use things changes.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, Jared, man. And like, I'll say one thing that's just coming to my mind right now. It's that when I can't speak for people. I can only speak for myself here.
Mhm.
Is for me, it's like, using psychedelics after the usage, you're not stoked to do it again. You're not
Okay.
for the next ayahuasca ceremony. No, versus, other recreational drugs. I'm sure, people, there's an addiction that can be developed,
Mhm.
whether people have an addiction with marijuana or other types of drugs or whatever they're addicted to, right? Um, and this is just my observation
Mhm.
within myself that there's no attachment to it.
Yeah.
There's no attachment to it. I'm not stoked to eat fungi mushrooms, psychedelic psilocybin mushrooms. You're not stoked to do that again. And so yeah, I wanted to just say that because like I feel like that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah. No, huge. And, even you just saying that to me right now, I stopped for a second. Oh, that's interesting, right? Because when you
Yeah,
think about a lot of those things that are fun, right? Of
yeah,
like, I can't wait to do it again, whatever it might be. Where, and as you were talking earlier about the set and setting and how much intention, and that's really, I guess, the part that started to shift my thinking is when you started going into the intention behind the ceremony or the usage of these substances, right?
right.
And it's sounds like it can be exhausting, right? And can you go a little bit into that? So talk a little bit more about that setting, going in with intentions and how it's kind of shifted from your first time, because I imagine it was a lot more of I don't know what to expect. It's like now I'm doing this differently, as opposed to, some of, of the subsequent times that you've done it. And maybe, and I don't know this, but, are you coming in with a very strict, like, hey, I know specifically I need help on this problem, or is it still more of like a discovery?
Yo, I love that, man. I'll start off by saying that everybody chooses to journey with psychedelics for so many different reasons,
Mhm.
right? And the reasons could vary from I'm going through a tough time in my life, and I want to go a little bit deeper to uncover what's underneath that. Another reason could be, I've been feeling spiritual lately. I'm just feeling called to this ceremony, and I wanna experience a spiritual journey. Could be something as simple as that, right?
Mhm.
Um, for me, I've never, every psychedelic experience I've had, I never sought it out.
Okay.
It always somehow it was like either like an invitation or it was something that keeps popping up in my mind.
Mhm.
Like, oh, that's like, and that comes with a lot of journaling and reflection and meditation, right? You start to observe your thoughts, like, oh, like what's this thing? Like, why do I keep on thinking about this experience? And I think when you've begun your journey with psychedelics, when something keeps on popping in your mind and you inquire deeper, you kind of take it as a little bit of a sign or a little bit of a nudge, right?
Mhm.
Is there something more there? And so for me, just wanted to quickly say, like, I've always just listened. I've listened to my intuition. I've listened to the little signs, and then I make a choice from that place. I'm never like Googling, hey, when's the next time, DMT or whatever is coming to town. I don't know, right? It's like there's none of that. And if I ever do arrive at that place where I'm seeking, then I know that that's not the right intention. That's not the right set,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about set first. Let's start there, and
Cool.
then we'll get into setting after. So with set, it's all about intention setting. It's all about like why why am I called to this? Why do I want to use this? And what's something in my life right now that I feel I want a little bit more clarity around,
Mhm.
right? And I'm always I always preach this because I think it's very important, and I want to say it very clearly on your podcast too, is that psychedelics will not provide you with the answers. Psychedelics will not heal you. Psychedelics is not the holy grail, you know, and that's a very important distinguishing point, because if we start to see psychedelic substances, plant medicines, as the holy grail, that within itself there will become a dependency on it,
Yeah.
right? Versus, this is a vehicle that will help me reveal something more. This is a vehicle for me to relax my heart and open up so that I can see what's underneath, versus this is the thing that will save me. You feel the difference, right?
For sure. And just to jump in there really quickly too, is speaking to one of my, again, call it fears or reservations about like psychedelic substances, is that knowing that I do tend towards an addictive personality, worried about becoming addicted to these substances, right? And yeah, and so that whole subject of dependency on these substances, and again, almost going back to what you were talking about before, of like when you're looking for them to fill that need or fill that hole, right? Of worried about going down that road, and so bringing consciousness into it, I think, is just so important, like from the outside looking in.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that kind of depicts this the set part, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking with an intention, now there's been times where I walked in with no intention other than, hey, I'm just, I feel called to be here right now,
Mm-hmm.
and my intention simply is, what can you show me? What can this substance or this experience show me in this moment that I can't currently see myself? Right?
Yeah.
You'll hear it in a lot of different podcasts around psychedelic educators or users or facilitators. They say this a lot, and they say that um, the substance and the experience, it's like uh, an ego eradicator, or it puts your ego, it softens your ego a little bit, so that you can see something that your ego is actually not wanting to look at.
Gotcha.
And plant medicines and psychedelics have that power, or they have that power. In my experience, it's allowed me to lower my defenses a little bit and actually see the situation that is currently heavy on my heart for what it actually is versus what I want it to be.
Gotcha.
Right?
Very cool.
So yeah, man. Anything you want to say about that before I move on to the setting?
No, I was just going to say, I'm curious to hear about the settings and how they differ, and the different, because I know you've gone to some very, I wouldn't call them like structured, but call them ceremonies, right?
Yeah.
And that was another interesting one to me, where it was being led by facilitators, and sometimes in a very large ceremony, and sometimes a little bit more, call it low key or relaxed. I'm interested to hear more about those.
Totally, man. Yeah. So so I'll just be super transparent here, right? So I've experienced peyote,
Mm-hmm.
which is cactus, in a ceremony setting, ayahuasca in a ceremony setting, and 5-MeO DMT in a ceremony setting. And then psilocybin and LSD was self-guided with myself and one or two other trusted people in an environment where we curated a very highly intentional and safe environment. So the biggest difference with ceremony versus self-guided space, ceremony involves many people in the room, and there's a facilitator. There's one or two people that are kind of leading the thing, right? And the thing about setting is that it's all about safety. It's all about physical safety,
Yeah.
and also spiritual safety.
Okay.
Right. Physical safety meaning, so I'll give you an example. Okay. So the ayahuasca journey that I went on in the ceremony, before we all began, one of the facilitators' assistants went around and collected everyone's phone and everyone's car keys, so that nobody can just get up and run, because you are in an altered state.
Yeah.
Right. And so I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that a lot. Right.
Yeah.
The facilitators, in a safe environment, if you're going through a really deep journey and you're going through a really tough moment, because it's not just rainbows and butterflies. Some of these experiences are a little bit darker and heavier.
Yeah.
And they come and sit beside you, and they would softly and gently speak to you so that you remain present in your body, right? And that you don't disassociate in that moment. And so that is a very safe environment to know that at any moment you can just put your hand up and be like, I need a little bit of assistance here.
Yeah.
And then something will be there. Right. So setting is very important.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd be, if you're comfortable sharing, of what are some of the things that you have discovered, using these substances, or is there a specific problem or obstacle that they've helped you overcome? Either the combination of, doing several different ones at different times, or yeah, just kind of going into that if you feel comfortable.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll kind of speak as things come up for me.
Sure.
I think the one of the first ones that has come to my mind is psychedelics has taught me. Sounds like it could be a really good blog post or something. Psychedelics, one of the lessons that it's taught me is to navigate life with a more relaxed heart. There's no need to run around forcing things to happen. In our control, gripping tightly, all that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
It's a really big lesson. If there's anything common between, all the different plants, is that it helps you surrender, and it helps you flow a little bit more with life instead of swimming upstream.
Yeah.
You're navigating downstream with awareness.
Yeah.
That's really helped me relax my heart. My anxiety is it's almost completely gone. Like I have some moments here and there. I have a little bit of anxiety, but it doesn't run my life anymore. And then I'm able to make very conscious decisions in my business and relationships from a relaxed heart versus a frantic state, right?
And I think that's one that, so many people struggle with, and it's such a hard one to let go, right? Of trying to let go of fighting the things that you cannot control, right? We always want to feel like we're in control. We always want to feel like we can influence the outcome. And in some things we can, but in a lot we can't, right?
Yeah.
And so putting our focus into those things that we can actually control and we can actually affect, instead of everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing a lot of, I believe this is in parts of the United States, but they're doing a lot of trials right now in a therapeutic environment. The therapists are actually using low doses of psilocybin to help their patients and their clients navigate through, anxiety, depression, PTSD, which is very beautiful, right? It's not a full psychedelic journey for some. Some are, some is, some aren't, but low doses actually help soften the heart and soften our nervous system a little bit, right?
Yeah. I know, just, listening offhand to Tim Ferriss, right? He talks a lot about the MDMA assisted therapies as well, right? And yeah, again, it's one of those things where I think that the view of them is shifting a little bit. And I think that it's also like most things where it's not all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's not they're good or bad, right? Or they always work or they never work. It's always in the middle, and it depends on everybody. It depends on what they are. It depends on how much, right? There's so many factors in there, but at least having the conversation, and like for a lot of people that can't be helped in other ways, right? And having that option at least available to them.
Yeah.
One of the other really interesting things that I didn't realize went into it with some of these, larger ceremonies was you shared some of the preparation that you would do, right?
Yeah.
And eating a very restrictive diet for a period of time going into them and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the preparation that you've done, even more from like the physical side? Because, we talked a lot about intention setting and, going in there with a mindset or specific problems. Well, let's talk about some of that like physical preparation that goes into.
Yeah, the most physical preparation I had to do was for an ayahuasca ceremony earlier this year, and it was very restrictive. So you had to start, ideally you had to start 2 or 3 weeks out, like 2 or 3 weeks before ceremony, but you can start 4 or 5 days before. But ideally, the later the better, not the closer, right? And the diet looked like, there was no salts, there was no There's no spices. You had to eat very clean. If you eat meat, you had to eat very clean meat. No pork, no alcohol, no caffeine, no sugar, no salt, um, and you had to avoid fruits that were high in tyramine, which is things like bananas or avocados, things that can spoil
Okay.
quickly. And you're probably wondering, well, why? Like, why all this? Like, why the restrictive diet and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Well, specifically with ayahuasca, it's it's an ancient plant from South America, and the psychedelic substance that is in the ayahuasca vine and the leaves, uh, it doesn't work well with those foods in your system. So
Okay.
it actually becomes like an inhibitor,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So you basically won't get the full experience. There's no detriment, right? There's no detriment. Like if you have salt and you go and have an ayahuasca, you're not going to have a seizure or something.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that, the shaman and the facilitators, they want you to have the full experience that you're paying for, that you're showing up for. And so there are guidelines that you have to follow, right? Some of the other ones that were really interesting to me is like, you can't, it's not that you can't, it's recommended not to watch violent entertainment.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah, so no action movies, nothing with killing or anything like that. Uh, no sex or nothing, no sexual activities, right? So no sexual intercourse, no masturbation, not even watching like a regular movie with a sex scene that would
Interesting.
that would maybe activate something in you, right? So you got to kind of put all that stuff to the side. A lot of spiritual preparation, right? So lots of meditation, lots of journaling, less screen time, and yeah, that's all I can remember at the moment.
Yeah.
It's quite strict. It's quite strict, and it sucks in the moment. But you look back at it, and you kind of respect the care and the thought, and how meticulous every little detail is. It makes for a really good experience, to be honest. Whether you feel the difference or not in the altered state,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, these people care.
Yeah.
And I respect the plant, and I respect the people holding the space too. So
Mhm. And you could even, this just popped up in my mind too, but you could argue as well that that physical side of it helps you in setting your intention, right? It helps you ground you in the this, call it seriousness, or in, you want to take it seriously,
right.
right? And so even with the physical preparation, I'm sure that it helps prepare you mentally as well. And
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
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 And I don't know if you'll remember this, but one of the metaphors that you used for me when you're talking about it was, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but essentially, if you have, again, call it an obstacle or an issue, what you've found is, you can, on the path to working around that or conquering it, you can walk, right? And it takes a long time, but you can get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes using these substances can act like a car, where you jump in a car, you drive there, and you get there that much faster. Do you remember that metaphor at all? And if so, can you kind of explain that a little bit more, and what you meant by
Well, you have a really good memory, by the way.
it?
I feel like I said that back in like January or February or something.
Yeah, it's probably around there.
Yeah, like I would say, the walking kind of represents like the meditation. It's like you can meditate for, an hour a day for 10 years, and you could probably find a lot of revelation, self-discovery through that path.
Mhm.
Going on the call it psilocybin journey. You start to run a bit. There's a little bit of a jog, right? And you go to like ayahuasca, and then you start running a bit faster, and then you go and you explore DMT, and all of a sudden you jump in a vehicle and you move a bit faster, right? Regardless of what vehicle you're in, you're arriving in the same place, you know, which is the beautiful thing, and that helps people navigate between right versus wrong, you know, and it's just like, you know, what path resonates with you, what are you called to. And when I say like what are you called to, it doesn't mean, you know, what are you not which path is the one with least fear, right? That's not always the case, but yeah, like all roads lead home.
Yeah.
You know, they all arrive at the same destination of deepening your understanding of yourself, right? Remembering, I like to call it a remembrance, because, you know, as we grow up, especially going into young teenage years and young adulthood, we begin to, you know, soak in and install a lot of programming that's around us in our society. And some of those programs aren't necessarily who we actually are. And, you know, almost kind of returning to one of your previous questions around like what are some of your takeaways, it's like one of my takeaways is like the psychedelics has helped me remember, like shed some old skin and sort of remember who I am at my core versus who I think I should be based on my programming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I guess just speaking to that a little bit, and again, you know, one of the things that changed my outlook on it, right, was hearing, and I've talked to, it's so funny how you start having some of these conversations and completely unrelated people tell you exactly the same thing, or like you have these conversations in other areas, right? And I've talked to multiple people where they've spoken to just how influential some of their experiences were and the benefits that they experienced,
Yeah.
right? And again, it's seeing that opposite side of, you know, always either being told by myself or from society or from my upbringing, whatever it might be, of just seeing bad, right, or irresponsible or whatever it might be, and then seeing that flip side of like, wow, like these are some legitimate, you know, positives that have come from this, life changing, you know, bringing people back from very dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's where I go, hey, it's not, you know, like a miracle pill, anything, right? It's not necessarily that you take this, your life's changed forever, everything's perfect. And for some people, it might be that. And for others, it might be detrimental. However, having open conversations about it, because there are those advantages, I think is super important. And again, you know, like I said at the beginning, I've seen those advantages. I've seen people talk about it. And right now I'm not in a place where I would go down that road, but even being open to it and, you know, trying not to impose that on other people. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that anything that helps someone without causing harm to others, is something to be talked about, and it's something to look into, and approach with curiosity. Right.
Yep.
Instead of, you know, and again, going back to that, like removing the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, right?
Yes.
Like you don't do that because that's just the way it is, right? Well, okay, well, let's look at it. Let's see why it's not that way. Is it still true? Is it just what we've been told our entire lives? And so, you know, that's again one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah, man. And like, you know, one of the things that I've observed with psychedelic usage is that when you're in that, if you're like in the eye of the storm of that experience,
Yeah.
you're so in touch with your body, and you're so, and this is going to sound interesting, but you're so in touch with your soul. You're fully in that space, and it's a lot less heady,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, some people who explore psychedelics, some of their reasoning is they want to overcome depression, or they want to overcome anxiety, and they want to overcome PTSD, right? And those three experiences, for example, you know, those experiences are related to the mind,
Mhm.
right? Our depression and our anxiety and PTSD, our past experiences, memories, all that stuff, it's of the mind. And you really think about it, a person that goes into ceremony and uses psychedelics, it brings them into their body immediately, brings them to their body. However that experience is for that person, it's in their body. And I feel like that is, my theory is like that is why people see so many benefits from it. They see less depression, they see less anxiousness, they see less PTSD. It's because, you know out of their control, now they're in their body.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Very cool. And, it kind of leads into a question of just, again, coming from curiosity of, and, I don't know how much, and of course it's all secondhand information, but, being in a ceremony with, several people, how varied do you see the responses be and the experiences? Are they completely different for everybody? Are they, kind of in the same lane? Like, what have you seen just from your experiences with it?
Yeah. Awesome question. It's all different. It's
Yeah.
all different. There's for anybody, uh, their experience is going to be different for you at any point in time. Even it's
Yeah.
like, day. So an ayahuasca ceremony is typically 3 to 5 days,
Okay.
right? So like 3 nights in a row, you can have 3 different experiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then multiply that by the 15 people that are in the room,
Yeah.
right? So in the matter of 3 days, you can see and you can witness so many different experiences for people. Uh,
Crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. It's in a good way. It's incredible to see all the layers that people go through,
Mhm.
and a lot of the times, the layers that we go to are the layers that we suppress in real life.
Yeah.
We're taken to that shadow self of ours. Again, I'm going to bring this back to me. It's taken me to my shadow self,
Yeah.
in different parts and different textures and masks of my shadow that I've put on over the years, and it's allowed me to really face off, like look at it, like acknowledge it, even because the Andy, on a regular day-to-day basis, and this is where our mind comes into place. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to go there because we're afraid.
Yeah.
We're afraid. And it's ironic because the healing of that shadow is to look at it,
Yeah.
is to just witness it, is to just acknowledge it. But if we're not bringing it forward, we can't heal it, right? We
Mhm.
can't heal what's hidden.
Yeah.
And I think that plant medicines and psychedelics helps bring those things to the surface. Now, what you do with that is up to you, right? Which is why the second portion of psychedelic and plant medicine use is integration.
Mm.
Huge part of that. We can get into that too.
Yeah. I was going to say, can you talk more about integration and just, what it is and how you do it? Why it's important?
Yeah. Integration is the post experience,
Okay.
basically. That's what it is. It's like what were we shown? What did we see, or what did we feel? And how can we apply this into our lives moving forward? Versus just experiencing it and then nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another huge difference between psychedelic uses in that with that intention versus just recreational use.
Yeah.
Recreational use, there's so many parts that are missed, especially the setting is different, and the integration is non-existent actually.
Yeah.
Versus a ceremony or intentional use, integration is the key part. So that's what it is. Integration is like, how can I integrate and put into action the things that I've learned or the things that I've been shown.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important because we don't want to be overwhelmed with all these new things potentially, right? And what's the point really of doing it if we're not going to extract learning lessons, extract key takeaways, and it doesn't have to happen right away. And integration doesn't need to happen the day after,
Yeah.
but integration does need to happen at some point, right?
Yeah. It's funny where my mind goes when you're talking about this.
Hear it.
Where, I almost want to pull it outside of even psychedelics, and just with everything, and a lot of, like a lot
Yeah.
of work that you do on yourself. I think integration a lot of times is the piece that's missed, right? And, a little while back, we talked about, the difference between just like learning about self-improvement and actually putting it into practice, right? And I think it comes back to that integration even of, you can go and you can, through therapy or men's groups or, reading books or listening to podcasts, any sort of self-development, a huge piece is coming to these realizations, having these experiences, seeing your blind spots, seeing your faults, acknowledging them. And a huge piece is that integration of now you have to go out and live it, right? Now know it, now you need to live it. Your eyes have been opened up to it, now you need to live it. That's where, I would say a lot of the true growth comes in.
Yeah.
You can realize your flaws, you can realize what you need to work on, and that's amazing. And I think that's hard work and important work. And now you need to go and integrate it into your life, because that is the upside, right?
Yeah. And there's different, like integration, there's different factors to it.
Okay.
Integration isn't always like a strategy plan,
Yeah.
or just like having to go and take bold actions everywhere to continue to integrate this. It could be something as simple as, okay, this is something that I just took away from that ceremony or that book or that podcast, and I'm just going to close my eyes and meditate for 5 minutes and and just feel where that could fit in my life. That could be integration.
Mm-hmm.
Integration can be, this is something that I've recently learned. I'm going to have a conversation with 2 people about it in my life about this. That's a form of integration.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this like crazy action plan. You got to start a business or you got to do something, right?
Yeah.
It can just be something as simple as, I'm going to give this more time and energy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it really for integration.
Yeah. Just to offer a tangible thing from my life, is for integration. And it wasn't a plan. It just has sort of happened. Right. And that being like my struggle with conflict and realizing that I hate conflict. Right. And so the integration has just been, okay, like I'm going to work on voicing my true opinions that have the potential for conflict.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't mean that I just go out looking for fights. It doesn't mean I get into fights even. It's just like, you know what? I don't agree with that. Or I didn't like that. Right. And that can be the integration. It can be, I didn't like that ice cream flavor, right? With somebody, right? Of like, they say that it's their favorite and you're like, yeah, I just didn't really like it. Right. And and I think that's super important of what you said. It doesn't have to be this huge plan. It doesn't have to be this like life altering, life changing, like event or anything like that, but integrating. So I'm glad that we kind of went on a little discovery and discussion on that, which is super cool.
Yeah.
One thing that I do want to bring up, and I'm just curious too, of have you experienced or seen any negative effects from plant medicine or psychedelics, anything from super minor? I think that it is important because again, nothing is ever 100% one way or the other. And I'm just curious to see if there's anything that you have noticed or comes to mind.
Yes. And it's gonna kind of relate to that setting part.
Okay.
There's one mushroom / psilocybin journey I went on where we didn't remove the phone out of the setting, out of the equation. And when you're in an altered state and you're working through, let's say, for example, relational stuff, maybe people that are in your life, sometimes you pick up the phone and you message them or something.
Yeah.
In that state. And it's not a good idea. Let's just say. And so that's a negative. I wouldn't even call it a negative thing, but maybe like if we can add more awareness to that, it's like, remove any device or anything that could impact your current experience, where you would regret it. You could possibly regret it later on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be the negative thing. It's like you're so in your body and you're also in an altered state where you don't have full control.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be making big decisions or communicating any big things during that. Even after, you want to even just like wait like the day
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like just give yourself a little bit of space. Cause I think that's I think that's the downside is you get so excited from your downloads, your discoveries, or your experience that you're so quick to just share it with the world or something like that.
Mhm.
When in actuality, I recommend just really slowing things down.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to, the integration part, like you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, you know, you're not obligated to. And, I would say just give it some space and slow down with all of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think the other thing would be around that dependency part.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you doing this? And it's always prefaced from the facilitators that, uh, and even I preface this with the friends and close people I do it with, if it's a self-guided journey, where it's like, yo, what's going on in your life right now? If it's super heavy or if you're in a super depressed state, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
There's a difference between navigating a difficult challenge in your life and you want some support and you want to try psychedelics out, versus you're currently in something super deep and heavy.
Yeah.
And to use that, right? It's like, where are you at? How solid are you
Yeah.
at the moment? Right? Mixing psychedelics or using it too close in this in within this similar time frame
Yeah.
is not good either, right? The ayahuasca shaman and the facilitators, they always say, hey, have you used marijuana? Have you used DMT or any other substances in the past 14 days? And if so, you're not joining the ceremony.
Yeah.
Right?
Sounds.
So there are precautions for sure. It's
Yeah.
not they're not things to be taken lightly, because the experience is, it's not for the faint of heart, if that's the right saying.
Yeah, for sure. As we wrap up here, kind of my last two questions to you are,
Yeah.
if somebody is interested in this world, right, and learning more, one would be, what kind of, like, in your experience, what kind of challenges or, goals can psychedelics help with, right? And two, where would you start that journey of looking into it, right? So if somebody is interested, where are some places that you have found that have some good information, or just to start that journey of figuring out if it's for them?
Yeah, that's really great. I'll start with that question. Like, where can people go if they want to learn more or whatnot? There's a website called Psychedelic Times.
Okay.
I think it's either psychedelictimes.com or .org. And it's a website that has a lot of really great content and information on these substances. They even like break it down for each psychedelic substance,
Cool. Okay.
whether it's ayahuasca you want to learn more about, psilocybin, peyote, San Pedro,
Mm.
all that stuff, right? And there are different articles that they post on it as well, which is really neat on how the Western world is becoming more open to it. Actually,
Yeah.
we're becoming more open to this type of therapy, which is really cool. Um, if you're looking for this experience, I would start, having conversations with people in your community, right? And about some of their experiences and journeys, versus looking for, going on TripAdvisor and looking for, you know what I mean? Like, I would say if you're going into a ceremony type of environment, it's so important who the facilitator is, what experience they have, and you don't want to just find something on Google and just give your money away and sign up on there. I would say if you can find a reference from somebody in your community who has done it, and I'm sure that there are, if a lot of people don't talk about it openly, right? Just ask around, start having the conversation with your friends and family and people in your community, because you'll find the better sources from them based on what they've experienced versus TripAdvisor. Because I use TripAdvisor because there are, I don't want to like put a negative light on TripAdvisor, but just do your homework.
Yeah.
Do your homework, and the sources that come from people that you know are better than sources that you can find on the internet, to be honest, when it comes to who to do it with. If you want to learn more about it, the history of it, all that stuff, Psychedelic Times is great.
Yeah.
What was the first part of your question?
I was gonna say, like, what type of issues or struggles or obstacles have you found it useful to get over? And I guess just quickly speaking to that, though, is my big takeaway from this conversation and many other conversations that we've had and I've had with others is just, don't go into it lightly, right? Take your time, do your research, just explore, research, educate yourself before just diving in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like setting, education, and some sort of a plan-ish around integration. If you can have those 4 boxes checked off, I think that's a really good start, right? And even, like, just to quickly add here, if you're like talking to somebody in your community that has this experience, be very mindful as well. If they're telling you exactly what you will experience, then that's not, I wouldn't take that. I would take that as with a grain of salt, is what I'm trying to say. Every experience is going to be different for everybody at any point in time.
Yeah.
Right. If they're talking about their own experience, great. But if they're telling you what you will experience, then I would be cautious. Yeah, sure.
And then, so just going back to those, the type of things that you found it's helped you with.
Yeah. I would say if there's some sort of patterning in your life that you've been noticing, like some wounds that keep on being triggered in your life over and over again, and you just have a hard time of like really breaking through that, I think that's a really good opportunity to have psychedelics / plant medicines as an option. Because patterning is a lot of patterning is of the mind, right? It's habitual. It's just habitual familiarity, thought patterns, all that stuff. And so I would say if there's any sort of like patterning in your life, addiction in your life, I would look into that. Or just like spiritual curiosity. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom for you to go and experience something like this. If there's some spiritual curiosity within you, that's awesome, right? Because in my experience, plant medicines, it's opened the door for me spiritually in many ways. And it's really hard to explain, actually, even what that even means. However, it's really opened my, call it like, here's a good analogy. Spiritually going into it, my field of view is like this big, right? A bit narrow. After years of psychedelic experience, my spiritual views has widened. You start to look at many things in many different angles, and in a good way, not in like an overwhelming way, right? You just like look at different experiences with different angles, and you start to respect those views versus, no, my view, this is the only view. This is the only way. Right? There's like an expansion of that. Your view, your peripherals just widen. Spiritually. And so, yes, if you have curiosity around that, like, that's cool.
Awesome. Thanks so much for this. I mean, before I let you go here, I was just curious if there's anything else you wanted to say, anything that comes to mind, parting thoughts, anything like that.
Yeah, I would say there's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to plant medicines and psychedelics. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel fear, right? It's okay to feel the fear as an experience if you're looking to get into this. But I just wanted to reassure to people that, if you get those 4 check marks ticked off, setting, education, and integration, you're in a really good place. and you're setting yourself up for an experience that you're going to learn a lot from.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say good or bad, right? I'm just going to say it's an experience that you
Yeah.
learn a lot from.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to paint things black and white when it comes to psychedelics, because that's the last thing that it is, black and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
All colors of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And yeah, like that's kind of just what I said earlier, were my part and thoughts of, just make sure you do your research, don't use one source, right? Take everything with a grain of salt. Don't use this conversation as your only point, right? Cross check, educate both sides of the equation and argument as well, right? Like see why people say that they're, good and then bad, right? Check both sides, do your education, search online, talk to people that have experienced it, and just go in, with as much background as you can. And yeah, just don't take it lightly. So,
and also, go into it, and it's not about the outcome. Like, find it somewhere in yourself to release the grip or the attachment around what it needs to look like or whatnot. You know what I mean? So can I just take a second to read something out from a book that I'm currently reading?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So the book is called LSD and the Mind of the Universe. It's written by Christopher Botch. He's a PhD professor and incredible story. And I've not done this book yet, but there was a paragraph in his introduction that really caught my attention, and I wanted to read it out. I want to read it out right now.
Cool.
I've just felt called to do it. Okay.
Cool.
So it says, this is a paragraph, it's the second paragraph in. It says, from ancient times, men and women have gathered under the night sky and taken substances that helped them commune with their inner being and with the life that runs through all things. They have sat in prayer and silence, seeking healing and guidance so that they could return to their lives better people and more aligned with the deeper currents of life. Because these substances opened them to the spiritual dimension of existence, they were called sacred. Because they healed the wound of forgetting who and what we truly are, they were called medicines. From before written history began, the sacred medicine path has been one of many spiritual paths human beings have taken to find themselves, to find each other, and to find the divine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. And thanks again so much for being on and having this conversation and being so open and honest about your experiences, because I know it is a very personal experience and, something that is different for everybody. So I just appreciate that. And I can't wait to have you on again.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.